My brother took my tools and sold them for beer, so I took his car title, replaced everything. And he still doesn't know who tipped off the Repo guys. I'm a 29-year-old mechanic, and every single tool in my garage has a story behind it. I bought most of them one by ones, sometimes skipping meals, sometimes taking side jobs until midnight just to afford a better wrench set. Those tools aren't just metal and rubber to me. They're survival. They're pride. They're proof that I built something out of nothing, but living with my older brother. Mike has always made that pride feel like a joke. Mike's the kind of guy who calls himself a free spirit, but really that's just code for lazy. He's 32, jobless, and somehow manages to make everyone feel sorry for him. Our mom calls him sensitive. I call him comfortable. Comfortable living off my paycheck. Comfortable eating my food. Comfortable borrowing money he'll never pay back. It started small. He'd forget to fill up my truck after using it. Then he'd accidentally lose a socket or misplace my drill. I told myself to let it slide, family, right? But the truth is, every missing item felt like a small betrayal. Every sorry man, I'll get you back later, felt like a lie wrapped in a smirk. Our mother always took his side. He's just going through a rough patch, she'd say, clutching his shoulder like he was a wounded soldier instead of a groan. Man who couldn't hold a job longer than a pizza delivery shift. I tried to believe her. I tried to be patient. But every time I walked into that garage and saw my tools lined up, shining under the yellow light, something deep in me whispered, he doesn't respect you. And I didn't know it yet, but that whisper was right. Because soon, those tools, the very thing I worked my whole life to build, would become the weapon of his worst betrayal. It was a Saturday night, the kind where the smell of grease still clings to your skin and your hands. Ache from tightening bolts all day. I remember walking into my garage, expecting the quiet comfort of my tools waiting for me in their usual places. But the moment I flipped on the light, my stomach dropped. Whole sections of my workbench were empty. My torque wrench set gone. My pneumatic impact gun gone. Even the precision ratchets I'd imported from Germany missing. I stood there for a solid minute, trying to convince myself I must have misplaced them. But I knew my setup like my own heartbeat. Those tools were gone. When I stormed into the house, Mike was on the couch, drinking a beer, eyes glued to the TV. "Mike, where the hell are my tools?" I asked, my voice shaking. He barely looked up. "Relax, man. I just borrowed a few to help my buddy fix his car. I'll bring him back in a couple days." "Borrowed what exactly?" "I don't know, some shiny stuff." "You've got plenty. Don't be stingy." The way he said it, like my hard work was some kind of joke, made my jaw clench. I tried to trust him. For 3 days I waited, checking that empty spot every morning before work. By the 4th day, my gut wouldn't shut up. Something was off. I stopped by the local pawn shop, the same one I'd used years ago when I was struggling to buy my first set of tools. The owner, Jerry, gave me a look the second I walked in. "Hey man, those tools you're asking about? Mike sold them 2 days ago. Said you were downsizing." My blood ran cold. I didn't even hear the rest. All I could think was how easily he traded my life's work for a few cases of beer. He didn't just steal from me, cashed in my trust. I drove home from that pawn shop in silence, gripping the steering wheel so hard, my knuckles turned white. My heart wasn't just broken, it was burning. When I walked through the door, Mike was exactly where I left him, sprawled on the couch, beer in hand. Like nothing in the world could touch him. I slammed the pawn receipt on the coffee table. "You sold my tools, Mike. Don't you dare lie." He glanced at the paper, smirked, and shrugged. "Man, you're overreacting. I was going to pay you back." "With what?" "Spare change from your next six-pack." I snapped. Before I could say more, Mom rushed in, her voice trembling. "What's going on?" "He sold my equipment, Mom. Thousands of dollars worth. Everything I worked for." Her eyes darted to Mike, then back to me. "Honey, he's struggling. You know how hard things have been for him? Maybe he just made a mistake." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. A mistake? He pawned my livelihood for beer money. He knew exactly what he was doing. Mike stood behind her, arms crossed, wearing that smug half-smile that made my blood boil. "You always think you're better than me. Maybe if you weren't so selfish?" I interrupted, my voice cracking. "You stole from me?" The shouting echoed through the house until Mom started crying. "Please stop." "Don't call the police. You'll tear this family apart." For a moment, I actually hesitated. I looked at her, the woman who raised us, pleading between us like this was some small misunderstanding instead of a betrayal. And Mike just stood there, hiding behind her like a coward. Something inside me broke that night. I didn't call the cops. I didn't even pack a bag. I just walked out, hands shaking, and promised myself one thing one day. My brother would learn what it felt like to lose everything. The weeks that followed felt like starting life over from ashes. Without my main tools, I was barely scraping by at the garage. Every job took twice as long. Every customer complaint felt like a dagger. I couldn't even tell them the truth. How could I admit that my own brother crippled my business? So I smiled through the frustration, swallowed the humiliation, and picked up extra shifts. I started working late into the night, doing small repair gigs for my driveway, changing tires, fixing brakes, anything that could earn me a few extra bucks. Some nights, I'd pass out in my work chair, still in my grease-stained overalls. The exhaustion was brutal. It was better than sitting at home listening to Mike's laughter echo through the walls. He was living comfortably, somehow always with a fresh case of beer. New clothes, even a flat-screen TV he bragged about buying with a good deal. I never asked how. I already knew. Every time he cracked open another bottle, I saw my lost tools in his hands. My anger hardened into something sharper. Not rage, not sadness, but cold focus. This time I didn't trust anyone. Every new tool I bought, I paid in cash, kept the receipts locked in my glove box, stashed the equipment at the shop under a false shelf panel I built myself. It wasn't just about rebuilding anymore. It was about protection. One night, while Mike laughed with his buddies in the living room, I sat alone in the garage, staring at my slowly growing collection of new tools. The smell of oil and metal filled the air, familiar, grounding. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just replacing what he stole. I was preparing. Because one day, all that smugness, all that freeloading, it would cost him something he couldn't buy back. Months slipped by, but the bitterness never did. I kept my distance, polite, civil, emotionless. On the surface, I'd moved on. I'd even started joking with Mike again, grabbing beers together, pretending the whole pawn shop incident was buried in the past. But behind that calm smile, I was watching him, studying him. His life was unraveling fast. The new TV ended up broken during a drunken fight with one of his buddies. The phone he bragged about got shut off when he couldn't keep up with payments. He started borrowing from shady guys, the kind who wore gold chains and carried debts in threats, not words. I'd hear his late-night arguments through the walls, promises he couldn't keep, lies he thought sounded convincing. Still, he had one thing left that gave him a sense of power: his car. A sleek black coupe he flaunted like it was a trophy. It was the one thing he actually paid for, or at least pretended to. He washed it every weekend, revved it loud, just to get attention, and never let anyone else drive it. That car was his ego on 4 wheels. One night, I was under a customer's hood, fixing a busted transmission, when 2 guys at the shop started chatting nearby. One mentioned his brother working as a repo agent, said he was tracking cars with fraudulent insurance and unpaid loans. "Most folks don't even know their stuff's about to get hauled off," he laughed. I froze. My hand stopped moving, and the idea hit me like a jolt of electricity. Mike's car, his pride, his identity, all built on fake stability and broken promises. If there was any justice left in this world, it wouldn't come from shouting or cops. It would come quietly, like karma on wheels. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't need to. I finally had a plan forming, and it was beautifully poetic. Patience became my new best friend. I didn't rush things, not this time. If I'd learned anything from watching Mike, it was that impulsive people destroy themselves. So I waited, and I planned. Every morning, every conversation. Every casual moment became a move in a long game he didn't even know he was playing. I started small. I'd compliment his car, ask about maintenance, offer to help out since he clearly didn't know what he was doing. He loved the attention. "Guess you finally got over that tool thing, huh?" He'd say, laughing, completely unaware that every time I was near that car, I was studying it, memorizing the VIN number, checking the loan stickers, even noting down the dealership details on my phone under a fake contact name. The deeper I dug, the more his lies surfaced. He hadn't paid insurance in months. He bragged about using fake renewal slips to dodge fines. "They'll never catch me," he said once, kicking back with a beer in hand. I smiled and said, "Yeah, man, you're unstoppable." Inside, I was already mapping the route to his downfall. One Saturday, while we were cleaning out the car, he tossed me the keys and said, "Pop the glove compartment." Grabbed the rags. I did and froze. Sitting right there, tucked between fast food receipts and expired registration, was his car title, the original one. No lock, no folder, no safe, just lying there like fate itself wanted me to see it. I looked at him, laughing across the driveway, totally unaware of what I'd just found. My heart was pounding, but my face didn't move. I handed him the rags, closed the compartment, and went back to wiping the hood. That paper wasn't just a document anymore. It was leverage, proof, and in my hands. It was about to become the sharpest tool I'd ever used. I found the wrench on a Tuesday, tucked behind a stack of junk in a pawn shop box like it was nothing more than a bent piece of metal. It had been my father's heavy, worn, and stamped with his name in those clumsy, crooked letters he used to carve into everything he owned. I remember Dad teaching me how to hold it, teaching me how to listen to a stubborn bolt. That wrench wasn't a tool. It was memory. When I asked the kid behind the counter why it was there, his expression went flat. "Some guy brought it in 2 nights ago. Said his name was Mike." The world narrowed to the size of that sentence. I tasted iron in my mouth, and the air in the shop got too thin. "You sold Dad's wrench?" I asked later that night, voice low. Mom's eyes filled with that same tired pity she always had for him. Mike just shrugged like it meant nothing. "I needed money, all right. It was just a wrench." Just my throat closed around a laugh that wasn't funny. I pictured Dad's hands, the way he'd rub the wrench after a long day, like it was the only thing that made sense. The betrayal cut so clean, it left me numb. This wasn't about cash anymore. It was about disrespect, about him pawning our past like it was trash. That snapped something inside me. Revenge stopped being a fantasy and became a plan. I slipped the car title out of the glove box that night, palms steady even though my heart hammered. I scanned it under the dim shop light. Watching the document turn digital like evidence being baptized, I made the calls on a burner number. Voice steady, saying things I didn't entirely believe. "This vehicle's registration looks fraudulent. Loans defaulted." I fed the repo agency just enough to make them curious, not enough to trace back. I hung up and listened to the hum of the shop, the radio, the distant rush of traffic, and felt the first rush of something I hadn't allowed myself in years: karma. Justice, whatever you want to call it, had started to move. I stood in the dark and waited, and for the first time since the tools disappeared, I felt the warm twist of control. But the next morning, Mike drove up like nothing had changed. Family dinners turned into theater, everyone pretending things were normal, while sitting across from the ticking bomb that was. Mike, he'd swagger in late, loud and full of stories about his unbeatable luck, how he always found a way, how nothing could touch him. I'd nod, chew quietly, and keep my face calm while he bragged about scamming another loan extension or ducking another bill collector. He had no idea that his luck was already. Numbered repo agents started creeping through the neighborhood in unmarked trucks. I noticed them before anyone else, subtle professional types who knew how to blend in. One afternoon, I heard them talking with a neighbor about default notices. My pulse quickened. The plan was working. I made sure they had all the details they needed: the right address, license plate, even a few anonymous tips about fraudulent registration. Each message I sent used a fake name, a burner account. I was careful, methodical. I didn't need to lift a single finger on his car. I just had to guide karma in the right direction. At home, I played the role of the forgiving brother. I laughed at his jokes, helped him wash the car, even nodded when he said, "Man, I'm untouchable." I always land on my feet. I'd look at him, really look at him. The same smirk that used to fill me with rage now made me feel nothing but quiet satisfaction. The balance was shifting. For the first time since he pawned my tools, I wasn't the one reacting. I was in control. And it felt good, dangerously good. At night, I'd sit in the garage under that dull yellow light, the hum of the fridge in the background, and think about how justice doesn't always come with sirens or courtroom drama. Sometimes it just rolls up in a tow truck, slow, silent. It's unstoppable. And I was ready to watch it happen just past midnight. I was half asleep when I heard the sound of tires screeching outside, then shouting. At first I thought it was another one of Mike's drunk friends showing up late, but when I looked out the window, I froze. Two men in reflective jackets were backing a tow truck down our driveway. Its orange lights flickered against the walls like a warning. And there, chained to the back, was Mike's car. His precious pride and joy, he burst out the front door barefoot, yelling, "What the hell are you doing? That's my car." His voice cracked with disbelief. The repo agent didn't even look fazed. He just handed over a clipboard and said, "Loan's been in default for months. You know how this works, sir?" Mike's face went pale. No, there's been a mistake. I've been paying. Those scammers at the dealership screwed up?" He was trembling, running his hands through his hair, pacing in circles as the tow truck lifted his car off the ground. The engine's dead weight groaned as if mocking him. Our mother came running out in her robe, tears already falling. "What's happening?" "Michael, what's going on?" "They're stealing my car, Mom." "Someone set me up." Her eyes darted between him and the flashing lights, confusion twisting into panic. "Who would do this to you?" I stood at the doorway, expression blank, playing my part. "This doesn't make sense," I murmured. "Maybe call the dealership in the morning." My voice was calm, and it scared even me. When the truck pulled away, the sound of the engine fading into the night, I felt my heart pounding like I'd just done something irreversible. The justice I'd craved for months was finally here, raw, poetic, perfect. But beneath the sweetness of it was something colder, a weight. I'd crossed a line I could never uncross. And for the first time, revenge didn't just feel satisfying, it felt real. The days that followed were a whirlwind of noise and blame. Mike tore through the house like a storm, kicking over chairs, shouting into his phone, demanding answers from anyone who'd listen. Every hour brought a new theory. First, it was the dealership's fault, then his ex's, then the crooked insurance guys. He even cornered our neighbor in the driveway one morning, accusing him of tipping someone off. The poor man just stood there blinking, holding his morning paper while Mike ranted about conspiracies and betrayal. Meanwhile, his job slipped through his fingers. Without the car, he couldn't make his shifts. Without the shifts, he couldn't make payments. The dominoes started to fall exactly the way I knew they would. I'd watch him pacing the living room at night, muttering under his breath, his face pale and eyes wild. Our mother tried comforting him, insisting things would turn around. But deep down, she knew this time he'd dug his own grave. I played the supportive brother. Man, that's rough, I'd say. Handing him a beer I knew he couldn't afford. "You'll figure it out. You'll always do." My tone was soft, my face sympathetic, but inside I savored every second. The irony was almost poetic. The man who mocked my obsession with tools was now helpless without a single one of his own. While he spiraled, I thrived. Business started booming. Word of mouth spread about my reliability, my craftsmanship. With the extra income, I upgraded my garage into a full-fledged repair bay. New tools gleamed under bright LED lights each. One, a symbol of rebuilding not just my career, but my dignity. Some nights, I'd sit outside after closing, hands still smelling of oil, and think about balance, how the universe eventually collects its debts. Mike had taken from me once, and now, without ever touching a thing, I'd taken back everything. And he still didn't have a clue who made it happen. Months passed, and the chaos slowly faded into background noise. Mike eventually stopped shouting about conspiracies and just deflated. The swagger was gone, replaced by a dull kind of bitterness. I barely saw him anymore. He was either hiding out with friends or wandering the neighborhood like a ghost of his former self. Life for me had finally balanced out. My shop was steady, my nights were quiet, and for the first time in years, peace didn't feel like a fantasy. Then one afternoon, a mutual friend from the old days stopped by the shop. We were catching up when he said casually, "Man, Mike still won't shut up about that repo thing. He's convinced one of his drinking buddies ratted him out for revenge money." I froze for a second, then laughed. "Still?" "Oh yeah," the guy chuckled. "He swears it was that guy, Tony. Says he's got proof. You should hear him." I couldn't help but grin. The satisfaction that bloomed in my chest wasn't loud or cruel. It was quiet, complete. Mike never suspected me. Not once. And that was the beauty of it. Revenge didn't need applause. It just needed results. Later that week, Mom stopped by the shop. She looked older, tired. "He's trying to get clean," she said softly. "He's been going to meetings. Says he wants to make things right." Her voice cracked on the last words. For a moment, the air in the room changed. The image of him screaming on the driveway flashed in my mind. The panic, the rage, the humiliation. Then I thought of my father's wrench, the pawn receipt, the years of lies. The guilt flickered, but it didn't consume me. I nodded gently and said, "I hope he does." Because I'd finally learned what Mike never could. Forgiveness isn't about letting someone back in. It's about learning where the door belongs. No, and locking it when you must. It's strange how life rebuilds itself after the storm. My garage now hums with the steady rhythm of air compressors, music, and satisfied customers. Every tool gleams like a medal of honor, not because they're expensive, but because I earned them twice over. The shelves that were once bare now shine under bright lights. Each wrench and socket a reminder that I didn't just recover what was stolen. I rebuilt myself. But I'm not the same man I was before all this. There's a coldness now, not cruel, just measured. I don't give second chances so easily anymore. I don't believe in family guilt trips or emotional blackmail disguised as love. When someone shows me who they are, I don't wait for explanations. I believe them. Mike still drifts in and out of the picture. Sometimes he calls, his tone awkward, asking for a small favor, a loan, a ride, maybe help fixing something. I listen politely and then say, "Sorry, man. Can't help this time." He always laughs it off, pretending it's fine, but we both know something's changed. The bridge is still standing, but it's missing a few planks, just enough to remind him not to cross too far. Mom still hopes we'll reconcile someday. Maybe she'll never understand that I did. Not with hugs or forgiveness, but with distance, with boundaries, peace. Sometimes when I close the shop late at night, I stand by the door and glance at my father's old wrench, the one I bought back from the pawn shop. It sits on a shelf above everything else, untouched, gleaming softly under the light, and I think about how poetic life can be when you stop chasing fairness and start demanding respect. He took my tools to feed his addiction. He took his car to feed his lesson, in the end. It was never about revenge. It was about reclaiming the dignity he thought he could sell.